Hi everyone, I'm Nicholas. Today is a very exciting episode because I just sold my first property. So let's go straight into it. So I bought Normanton Park in 2021 and now it's 2025 and I've just sold it. So this video, let me share with you 3 mistakes that I've made and how you can learn from my mistakes. If you're new to this channel, my name is Nicholas. I do mainly real estate insights. I share real estate strategies. So if this is what you are looking for, please hit the subscribe button. It will really help to grow my channel. So I bought Normanton Park in 2021. The reason why I bought it during that time was because I started my career in 2017 and then that was about, I saved enough money to finally purchase my own place. And I thought at that time, maybe I could only purchase a 1-bedroom at that time. I didn't think that I would be able to purchase a 2-bedroom. So when Normanton Park was launched, the price was attractive. Why I selected a new launch, maybe you want to ask that, is because I was staying with my parents and I was single. There was no real need for me to move out immediately, so I didn't need a resale property. So new launch at that time made a lot of sense to me. And then Normanton Park, was quite attractively priced. So I really pushed myself to buy a 2-bedroom because at that time I understood that if I buy a 1-bedroom, it will be comfortable. But then I think exiting will be quite difficult because a lot of the people are buying 1-bedroom to flip, to invest. 2-bedroom might be easier to exit, and that's why I thought of, okay, let's go for the 2-bedroom in Normanton Park. So that was my thought process when I purchased Normanton Park. I bought it for own stay in mind because eventually I wanted to move out, 3 years for it to build. Then I thought, okay, maybe if I got lucky, can meet a life partner, settle down, a 2-bedroom would be very good size for me and my partner to settle down, and 1-bedroom would be too small, so that's why 2-bedroom would be a better size. And then I didn't need to move in anyway at that time. So 3 years waiting time was perfect. I didn't think about renting it out, only as really like a backup. If really my career didn't do well, then I have no choice, I have to rent it out just to tide through. Then yes, maybe rental, but rental wasn't my number one priority. So I would say own stay and capital appreciation was my main priority when purchasing this property. When I was thinking of purchasing Normanton Park, I think another new launch I was looking at was Sengkang Grand Residence, just because my parents' place is at Buangkok area, and then Sengkang Grand is quite close to where my parents stay. It's familiar. But because it is an integrated development, Sengkang Grand launch price was about the same price as Normanton Park, around 1,700 plus PSF for the same size. And I thought, okay, if this is the case, maybe going for a city fringe project at the same PSF would make more sense. That's why I went for Normanton Park instead. So let me share with you, back in 2021, what was the buying experience. So it was really exciting because 1,008 units, I knew I definitely had a chance to get my own unit. There was agent priority purchase at the time. So I remember the agent purchase itself was 1 day before the main booking day. I think it was a Friday. All of us went down to the show flat. 100 plus agents, I believe, put in the check to buy a unit at Normanton Park. And then I thought I didn't put my number into the box because I didn't hear my number until I'm like the last few person in the dentation. I was like, oh my god, is my number even in the box? But thankfully, my number was caught and then I went to the show flat. So initially, what I shortlisted, I think we shortlisted about 50 to almost 100 units specifically in order before the balloting. And this is something that we recommend our clients to do because during the actual booking itself, it would have been very stressful. We wouldn't be able to make a very clear decision because there's so much stress. People are going in, it's very chaotic. So we made about 50 to 100 options in order so that when we go into the show flat, we know exactly what we want and that's our best choice. But when we went in, I think level 15 to level 18 of the stack that we wanted was already fully sold out. I didn't want level 14 simply because a bit superstitious, number 4, I didn't want that. So then we decided to go for level 19 and that's how I decided level 19 of that specific stack. Then why we chose a high floor unit is because Normanton Park, when it was launched, the per floor jump was very affordable. I think about $2,000 plus per floor. So then it made quite a bit of sense to go very high level instead of going for a low floor unit. So that was the mentality that I bought. And I remember actually 1 day before I went for this booking, it was actually the first date with my current wife. And then during that first date, right, I was so stressed before the whole purchase. The entire date, I was just sharing with her, oh my god, I'm going to make the biggest decision in my life at that time. And then after I buy this property, right, I'm going to eat grass forever because, I'm going to all in on this property. And really, the entire first date, I was just talking about, do you think this is the right decision? And it's quite interesting because, I'm a property professional, right, supposedly. But then I was just asking this other person who is not in property what her thoughts were and whether was I making 100% sense lah. Because at that stage, right, honestly, there's a lot of fear because you're really all in this property. And then thankfully, I think she felt that it was a very interesting date. It must be something memorable. That's why there was a second date lah, because I was definitely not into it, seeing that way. And but I'm really glad that it all worked out. It was very memorable because she was part of this whole journey even when I purchased my first property, which is I'm very thankful for that. Let me share with you exactly why I purchased this specific unit type. So for this 2-bedroom that I purchased, right, initially we wanted to go for the really small 2-bedroom because affordable ma. But then we really looked into the layouts and I felt that this layout that I purchased was a much better layout because it is one of the 2 stacks for 2-bedroom premium 2-bed 2-bath that has windows in the kitchen, windows in the bathrooms, which is something very rare in today's market. In the whole Normanton Park, even though I think there are about 300 plus 2-bedrooms, only 46 of such units have these windows in the bathrooms and the kitchen. And my unit is it lah. It's a 764 square feet corner unit. That's why you have the windows. And this window thing, right, is really very good because now that we live in it, the ventilation is perfect. Like all year round, you get super good ventilation. You don't need to worry that your washroom will be smelly, things like that. No mold issue also. And the cross ventilation, perfect all year round. At night, we don't even switch on the aircon on most days. And I'm also under the blanket, even though it's just a fan. And this is something very interesting because back when I'm staying with my parents' place at Sengkang, we stay at level 8, my aircon is always on, almost every day. I'm also under the blanket. But the thing is, because we're at a high floor, super unblocked, then you have very nice cross ventilation, right? Our utilities bill is actually quite good. Like maybe we average about $70 to $80 per month for a 2-bedroom. I think it's quite good lah. And that's why we chose this specific stack. The other stack that has also these features was 9 square feet bigger than our stack 7, and that one we didn't shortlist it because the kitchen and the master bedroom would have west facing sun. So then we didn't want that because you have to pay extra for the 9 square feet anyway. So then we went for the stack 2 and then I bought 1902 lah. This is why we shortlisted this unit. Then let me go through the living experience. So as I mentioned, ventilation is good, right? But other than that, staying at a city fringe project, because I drive due to my work, going from anywhere is really a dream come true because anywhere that we need to go, like Holland Village, Dempsey, Vivo City, everything is about 8 to 15 minutes away. And this is mind-blowing because back when I was staying with my parents at Hougang, right, just to go to CTE, because of the traffic lights, right, it takes about 10 to 15 minutes before I hit the highway. So when I moved to Normanton, I tell you, this is really perfect. But of course, the flip side is that if you look in the map, Normanton is not very close to a lot of amenities. We do have some shops within the condo, but if you talk about markets, you talk about shopping malls immediately, there's not really one in the walking distance, so we have to drive lah. But other than that, if you drive, then this is a perfect location. Second thing that I really like is the view. So because we bought for this layout, right, this is actually facing the highway. Thankfully, the highway noise is very bearable. That's why we sleep with the windows open and everything. It doesn't bother us. But the good thing is that we do get a very nice city view. Sometimes we do get a bit of fireworks also during National Day. And it's great. I think it's something that we'll definitely miss. And because Normanton Park is a mega project, 1,800 plus units, the land is very big. And now we do have a small puppy with us. He's about 1.5 years old. He's Nolan. And we take walks with him 2 times a day around the condo. And because the condo is so big, it's really nice walking our dog around the condo. It's really therapeutic and it really helps us as a couple to bond together. So this is something that we really like staying at Normanton. So now, 2025, why did I sell Normanton Park? This must be something that in your mind, you're probably thinking, why am I selling it? Do we need a bigger space? Actually, no, we don't need. So why are we selling this is because right now we fulfill the 3 years SSD period. We recognize that if we want to upgrade, this is probably a very good time to upgrade simply because right now there's an increase in income. Okay, so I bought this property as one person's name without my wife's name. And together, by exiting this property, we could potentially purchase up to 2.5 to 2.8 million kind of property and possibly don't need to inject too much cash for the next purchase. So if we want to do this, we have to do this right now because the nature of my job, I'm self-employed. Yeah, it's not like the more I work, right, there will be income increment, things like that. It's really every year I have to see whether I'm doing well. If I do well, then I can get that kind of loan. So right now, I'm still not 35 years old yet. I'm able to get a 30 years loan tenure, and that's very important because once I hit over 35, then assuming there's no growth in my income, then every year my loan amount will drop simply because of my age. So before we hit that stage, it's best to upgrade lah. So that's why we chose to do this. Then we also noticed that for Normanton Park, after TOP, the price seems to drop a bit after the initial TOP phase, and I felt that if I were to hold on longer, it may not be necessary that the price will definitely increase in the short 1 to 2 years. And also because right now, if you do go into Property Guru, there are a lot of people selling at the same time. So competition is something that is a concern, and that's why I wanted to lock in profits and just go for another purchase, hopefully to ride the new growth. Since right now, back in Normanton Park, probably it's a bit harder to do that. And lastly, this is a bit speculative, but I feel that because the market has been so hot in the new launch segments, potentially if the prices and the behavior continue to overheat in this way, there may be cooling measures. And if that hits, that would be quite detrimental to buyers like you and me, because the most critical cooling measure that I think government can launch right now would be to tweak the loan to value ratio from 75% to 70%. So then, for example, if you were to buy a 1 million property, now I will only need $250,000 for down payment. If they tweak the LTV ratio to 70%, then my down payment will be $300,000, and this is before stamp duty payments needed. So looking at 2.5, 2.8 million range, if my down needs to increase, then definitely my budget will drop. Then my affordability will also drop, and this will definitely affect me in the home purchase journey. Like that's why I decided to faster sell when I can, so that I'm able to maximize in terms of my budget for my next home purchase. So let's go through the 3 mistakes that I've made and what I would have done differently. So within Normanton Park, sadly, I feel that this wasn't unit that made the most gains. There will be other units that made better gains. And of course, this is on hindsight, but knowing what I know now, this is what I would do. I have a few colleagues who bought another stack, also 2 bedroom, 2 bathroom, and that is a 657 square feet compared to mine 764 square feet. And at that time, I believe the developer sold at pretty similar prices. And because they bought at a lower rate, they bought about 1.1 plus million. Most of them were able to exit about 1.38 to 1.4 million. And then that gives them about $300,000 in terms of gross capital appreciation. Compared to mine, I bought at 1.32 million, exit about 1.55 million. I only made about $230,000 in terms of gross capital appreciation. So essentially, these people put in less money and got more in return. So I think that is something that is, very enlightening, because right now I see this and I'm like, why did I make this mistake? But if you ask me, yes, financially may be a mistake, but then for own stay wise, my current layout definitely is much more comfortable because it's bigger. So why is this the case? Why is there such a big discrepancy? It's because the 657, 764 is a big gap in terms of the square feet. So in terms of the entry price, there will definitely be a big gap. But for buyers with a bit more budget constraint, or even for investors who are looking to buy a 2 bedroom, 2 bath to invest to rent out, honestly, the quantum is the one that matters the most, because in rental perspectives, a 2 bed 2 bath, the rental will not differ too much between a 657 and a 764 square feet, because essentially it's 2 bedroom, 2 bathroom. So the rental probably will be about 4,000 to 4,200 thereabout. And definitely from investors' point of view, it makes more sense to enter the cheaper unit at 657 square feet. So that's why it's much more easier that the 657 square feet homeowners who bought earlier, they can exit with better capital appreciation. That's why we are seeing all this. So this is one thing that I probably would change if I only wanted to buy this for investment purpose. So hopefully you can apply this when you buy your next property. When let's say you're buying a new launch and you're comparing the size within the category, for example a 2 bedroom or 3 bedroom, if the gap is very big, then honestly maybe it makes more sense to go for the cheaper quantum if the layout is about the same. Yeah, that's a key thing, because sometimes the smaller layout may not be a very good layout, and while it's cheap, resale people might not buy. So these are some things that we also need to consider lah. But thankfully this 657 square feet layout is pretty decent, dumbbell, and people can accept it in the resale market. That's why they're able to get better returns than my own unit. The second mistake I made would be I probably should have sold earlier if I wanted to lock in profits. So this is a case study. A neighbor of my same stack on the 11th floor, they bought at $18,000 cheaper because remember I mentioned earlier the lower units, right? Every floor jump is about $2,000 plus $3,000 per floor jump. And this neighbor at level 11, they bought at $18,000 cheaper at 1.302 million. Yet they sold a price higher than mine by $12,000 at $1.56 million, and they sold it in May 2024. So essentially, they made more money and they exited earlier than me. So this is, I think, a very good price and a very good investment for them because the ROE should be quite good for them, especially for this layout. And I think for this stack, they are still the highest transaction because I don't think there's any more transaction after this one and my one. Other than that, okay, my last mistake that I possibly could change would be, remember just now I mentioned that I thought of buying Sengkang Grand. So essentially, I look at Sengkang Grand returns right now. Actually, Sengkang Grand 2-bedroom make about the same kind of gains as right now Normanton Park did. So even though it's integrated or it's OCR, people are willing to buy and give the gains to the initial owners lah. So if I had bought Sengkang Grand, actually I think the gains would be still quite similar. But this is something I would do, would be not to buy Sengkang Grand. I would have chosen for the same budget to buy a 3-bedroom at Riverfront Residence, and this is actually really good because it's near my parents' place, a location that I definitely can accept, my family can accept. And why do I say that is because if you look into the transaction, these people bought around the same quantum as me. They bought about high 1.2s, low 1.3, yet they're able to make about $300,000 gross in 3 years. So I would say this is very good returns. As you see, annualized returns is about 6 to 7% on average. So why is this the case? Because post-COVID, all the people are just buying, or rather most of the people buying properties right now in the condo segment, or rather the new condo segments, tend to be HDB upgraders. So 3 bedrooms are the bare minimum that these HDB upgraders need because this is a very comfortable or very relatable layout that they know. Because if you think about it, most of the HDB these days, 4-room HDB will have 3 bedrooms, a kitchen, a yard, and this is something like a 3-bedroom condo offers. And that's why 3-bedroom and bigger condos these days are the biggest winners in the new launch segments, especially at the TOP phase. So if I had known all this going back in time, definitely I would have gone for a 3-bedroom, even though it's not near the MRT, it's in the HDB enclave. Riverfront Residence will prove itself to be a bigger winner in that sense. And actually, with this quantum, a 3-bedroom is actually more future-proof because if let's say I wanted to set up a family, want to have kids, things like that, a 3-bedroom would definitely be sufficient. So these are the 3 mistakes that I've made that I think if I knew now, I probably would have done things differently. Yeah. Anyway, I want to hear what kind of property mistakes you have made in your life. Please drop down in the comment sections down below. I would love to hear them from you. Okay, then right now, let me go through what are some of the lessons for buyers in today's market. So I think going through all of this buying and the selling process, something that I really remind myself is that I need to focus more on the value rather than the profit of the property. Because while selling Normanton Park, initially I was quite bullish and I wanted to sell as high as possible, just like any other home sellers out there. But I realized then actually the market isn't coming at the price that I was expecting. And then I was quite rather dejected in that sense because I thought I could get $300,000 gains kind of thing. Yeah, it was not possible. But if I had continued to harp on the profit and not move on with the sale, then I think, it would really delay my whole upgrading process because this would also delay my purchase. So right now, I would just focus on the value of the property. So I bought 1.32 all the way. Right now, it's about 1.55 million I sold, and I should just focus on that because with this 1.55, I can exit and then build a bigger value property with my wife and just continue on my journey. Because if I really just harp on the profit, I think, maybe until the end of the year, I probably wouldn't have sold my property. So this is something that I need to constantly remind myself, simply because everyone would love to have profit, good profits in that sense. But learning how to let go and learning when to exit at the right time, this is something that I think is quite difficult to grasp, because whether or not we exit at the right time, we only know on hindsight. Maybe 6 months down the road, 1 year down the road, then we probably know that, that was actually a good time to exit. But I think this is something that maybe you can also have this takeaway from my lesson will be for this. Then the second thing is also buying property is never comfortable. There will always be fear. I was fearful when I bought my first property, definitely because it was all in. I had to liquidate all my shares, my stocks, and my savings and go all in. There will always be fear. Even when selling the place and thinking about what to buy next, there will always be fear. But the key thing is that we still need to take action, because if you don't sell your property or you don't take any action, that essentially is the decision that you make. And I think in the long run, we need to ask ourselves, what do we want when we reach at older age? So for me, my strategy would be to really upgrade as fast as I can with my wife, reach a certain quantum in terms of our portfolio, and then at age 55, maybe just downgrade to a 4-room HDB, because right now that's the ruling without the 15-month without period. Cash out everything from a condo, either go to a 4-room HDB or smaller, or a 2-bedroom condo, and then cash that out for retirement. Because had we gone for maybe the HDB route, there's nothing bad about that. It's just that we probably need to be a bit more aggressive in the investment in the stocks route, which I'm not very savvy in. That's why I chose the real estate route, because this is my expertise. Another thing to take away from this is that I keep reminding myself that my age is a key factor to consider when to exit also, because right now I'm 33 years old. 2 more years till I hit the 35-year-old mark, where that is the break-even age to get the 30-year loan tenure. And while I still can get the full 30 years loan, I should really go for it. And that's why I didn't try to time the market. When I can exit, I just exit and then move on. And then I think I come to one of the last part of my video, which is what is my next move. So actually, I've already bought my next property. I'll share more about this in my next video, so do stay tuned. It's a new launch, and I'll also share with you in the next video why I chose a new launch again rather than a resale. I know what most of you must be thinking, wow, you buy new launch again, then in the interim we're going to stay. So yes, we're also going to explore the rental route while waiting for our new launch, and I'll explain to you in the next video why this will make sense and why this may not. But do stay tuned for the next video. So I've come to the end of the video. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button also. It really helps the channel grow, and I'll see you in the next one.